Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Welcome everyone to ISKCON of Silicon Valley. ISKCON stands for International Society for Krishna Consciousness, and it was founded by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who you see here seated on what's called the Vaisesika. So when one sits on the Vaisesika, it means that he or she is acting as a conduit or a messenger to pass down a message for all human society through which people can make spiritual advancement. And so Srila Prabhupada, some years ago, brought the teachings of Lord Krishna from India, actually predating India to Varnashram culture, which was widespread before there were the political boundaries there are now. And he inculcated in at least 5,000 direct students the teachings of Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and other of the Vaishnava literatures. And he also established at least 108 centers for Krishna consciousness around the world within a 12-year period. And then it's been carried on since then, and it's in many more places around the world. The books that he brought or wrote while he was here have been translated into almost 80 languages. And our center, ISKCON of Silicon Valley, which we're all sitting in now, was started around 1999 and in a small way, and has grown as a community over the last several years, to say the least several. I don't know what that means anymore. At least a couple decades. And so here we are. The purposes of the society are 7, to be exact, which Srila Prabhupada, this is the shortened name of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, we call Prabhupada or Srila Prabhupada, has given 7 goals for the society, or 7 purposes, which include developing centers around the world where people can find a spiritual oasis, and also creating literatures through which people can inform themselves and their families about the process of bhakti yoga. Also starting communities that are self-sufficient in living close to the land, and several more. So today we have an opportunity to discuss for a few minutes some of the practices of Krishna consciousness. I'm going to use a train of thought which will include the ideas that all of us have desires, because it's the living condition. As Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Nahi kaschit shanamapi jatu tishtatya karma krit karyate hyavasha karma sarva prakriti jarugunai. This is a point that Krishna makes which is definitive. He says that every living being, or I could say the symptom of the living being, is desire and activity. And he says that we're always active. You may notice that even when you go to sleep, you're still active because you're dreaming. And you're perhaps even going to work or school, but you don't get any credit for it. How do you feel about that? No extra credit for going to school or to work in your dreams. Nonetheless, we're active. And when we come to the waking state, we know we're awake. Our feet hit the floor and we're doing some kind of work, whether it is ruled by lower modes or higher modes, we still have to work. And there is a concept in Krishna consciousness that everything can be purified, and that's the purpose of the process of devotional service. One of the statements that defines the process that we're engaged in is given by Srila Rupa Goswami in his quintessential book on bhakti called the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, or The summary of that is called the Nectar of Devotion. And he says, Sarvapadi Vanir Muktam Tat Parat Vena Nirmalam Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam Bhakti Ruchate. And this is the definition of bhakti, which means that we have senses. Check and see if you have senses. I'm kind of noticing because you're all looking at me. And those are quite amazing senses, because how does that work anyway? But senses are quite miraculous. We can take in information, to put it in a very clinical way, from our environment and process it through the mind, which is called the sense within. It's a big processor. And then we have intelligence to discriminate between which kinds of information we find valuable and which we find not valuable. And the verse that I just quoted says, Krishna consciousness means using our senses in service to the master of the senses. So Hrishikesh means, Hrishik means senses, and Isha means the master. So I'm not the master of my senses, because if I were to do a thought experiment and perhaps think about one day if I wake up and I can't use my hand. In fact, I've had that happen before because I slept on it. He went to sleep. And I woke up and I just couldn't move it. And there was nothing I could do to convince it to do its work. If we lose the facility of our senses, we're not independent in bringing it back. You can go to a doctor and ask, could you help me restore this? And what will he or she say? So I'll do my best. But please don't mind if we kill you in the process. I mean, that's what they said when I got my knee fixed. And they said, don't mind. You may die, but don't blame us. So we're not independent, but Isha indicates somebody who is independent, who's controlling everything, including our senses. And therefore, instead of thinking my senses to be independent and myself to be using them as my instruments, the idea in bhakti is I have senses and I'll use them in divine service. And by that service, using the senses, and from the external point of view, one may say that you're still doing the same things. You may be driving a car, or you may be playing a guitar. It's Bob Dylan something. I'm not going to say smoking a cigar, because it would, although it rhymes, it's not going to work here. So there's a way in which all the ways that one would engage one's senses in healthy activities in service to the Supreme purifies the senses. Because when you bring an object close to fire, as an example of a crucible, which is where you bring metal in its impure state, and as you heat it, it gets purified because all the impurities run off and you keep the essential metal that you're trying to preserve. And in the same way, our senses are permanent. They're always active. They're part of us, but they get covered over. So do you know what gauze is? 3 people know? You know what it is. So if you wrap your tongue in gauze tonight, before we have our Sunday supper, and then you eat, how will you feel about it? Well, I know one person won't be happy, and that's our cook, because he'll think, why aren't you taking advantage of this beautiful prasadam? But once Srila Prabhupada gave an example that if you wrap your tongue in gauze and then you eat a rasgulla, now let me explain what that is. It's a Bengali sweet, which is considered one of the delicacies of Bengal. It's clean and sweet and tasty and a little squeaky if it's cooked properly. Cooks, Balaram? Should be a little squeaky, right? So if you taste a rasgulla, you might think you had gone to heaven. But if you wrap your tongue with gauze and then you eat a rasgulla, you'll think that, what's the big deal? So when our senses are covered by matter, then whatever experience we have, it seems like a lot of trouble. Or at first it seems like a good idea. It should work, but then it doesn't work. Have you ever noticed that? And in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Yehi samsparshaja bhoga dhukayonaya evate adyantavanta konteya nate shuramate buddha. That intelligent people don't get too wrapped up in trying to extract pleasure from the contact of their senses with the objects in the material world, because that type of pleasure is short-lived. However, there is an enjoyment that we get from the senses, and miraculously it comes from using our senses in service to Krishna, at which time they gradually get purified, and then we're able to experience unlimited pleasure in relationship to Krishna and his service, and the sense objects that we use in relationship to serving Krishna. So we have desire, and then we may, and of course desire means we want something. Would you concur? If you have a desire, it means you want something? I'm not too far off on that. So then there's another ingredient that's important if you want the fulfillment of your desire, and that is discipline. So idea is when desire meets discipline. It sounds like a romance novel or something like that. And it is. It's a match made in heaven, actually. If you have a desire, and then you introduce that desire to discipline, a marriage. You put their hands together, wrap it with, in a marriage, Indian marriage, put two hands together, wrap it with a garland, and they're together. So if you have desires, especially if they're well aligned and they're a good idea, and then you marry those desires to discipline, then Anshu, what do you get? Progress, or something like that. Any positive word will do. So that's what the talk's going to be about tonight. And that was pretty much most of the talk, just kidding. So what do you think of the idea so far? Okay, one thumbs up. I can't get hearts anymore like on Zoom, which is really hurting my feelings. Oh, thank you. Okay. So before we go into it, and I have a slideshow and a bunch of notes, which I'm going to refer to in a little more detail, because I actually gave a talk on this on Friday. And afterwards, Sundar Nanda Prabhu said, a little more detail, please. So I thought about it after he told me that, and he made some more detail to talk about how to actually stimulate and bring discipline into our lives. Okay? So first, let's chant the Maha Mantra together. And we'll start off by saying a prayer to Srila Prabhupada. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Deshatanya. And you can put up Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya. So anybody who doesn't know it, then we'll say Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasati Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Well, you missed it, so we'll get it next time. So now we'll chant Hare Krishna, just with clapping hands, no instruments to start with, so that we just hear the quality of the name of Krishna in the Maha Mantra. It's got 3 words, Hare, which refers to the energy of the Lord, what most particularly the female compassionate energy in the form of Srimati Radharani. Refers to the deity you'll see on the outline on the right-hand side of Krishna. She's whitish. And then we say Krishna, which means all attractive. And Krishna is called many things, the cause of all causes, our original divine source, and he's also a person. And as we are people and we've emanated from him, it makes good sense. And Rama, it's the 3rd word in this, what's called Maha Mantra, and Rama means the reservoir of all happiness, but not fake happiness, real happiness. Hare Krishna Rama. Everyone say. Hare Krishna Rama. Okay, so we'll chant for a little while with just hand clapping, because that's something that you can do at home. Even if you don't have an instrument, you can just sit with your family and you can clap your hands and chant the Maha Mantra. Okay, you ready? So the way it works is call and repeat. So I'll start singing. I'll sing through one whole Maha Mantra, and then you can repeat. And then we'll go back and forth for a little bit. Can you give me a good starting note? Just a regular Hare Krishna mantra, just like yesterday. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, this front row. Four. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama. Anybody in the chair or a bench next? The chairs have it. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, harmonium. Bardo on the madunga. Manisha on the cartals. Katha on the cowbell. For the Hare Krishna singers. For the Hare Krishna dancers. For everybody in, where are we? Mountain View. All over California. All over America. All over the world. Stop Premanande! Nitai Gaura Hari Bo. Hari Bo. Hari Bo. Nitai Gaura Hari Bo. Hare Krishna. I stole that move from Bhakti Marg Swami. And now we have a slide presentation, and in about 13 seconds you'll see somebody come out and give me a little clicker. That's quicker than 13. Or your money back from this seminar. Okay. Am I controlling it now? Yep. It's a little small, but a moment ago, we talked about desire, and the dictionary definition of it is a strong feeling of wanting. To have something or wishing for something to happen. Now, be honest. Have any of you ever wanted to have something or wished for something to happen? Yes. Okay. If anybody didn't raise your hand, see me afterwards. Symptoms of a living being. You can notice when a living being isn't present in a body, so a car doesn't go, and you'll also notice that the body doesn't go. As long as the living essence is within the body, then the body keeps its homeostasis, and you'll notice some life symptoms. And this is the most amazing force in the universe. Krishna distinguishes the energies in the universe by saying that some energies are separated material energies. And those include all of the energies that make up our bodies and minds. And I'll catalog them: earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and ahankar or ego. These constitute the gross and subtle elements, much like hardware and software, that make up the gross material body. And then in the Bhagavad Gita he says, besides these elements is another energy altogether. Apare mitastanyam prakritim vidime param. Jiva bhuta mahabaho yayedam dharete jagat. Jiva means that particle which is non-material and is alive. There's a difference between a jiva, or a living being, who has will and volition, which is about the same thing, and exhibits the symptoms, especially desire, and a stone. Stone doesn't have these. So these two energies are different, and we, sitting in this room, are a combination of these two energies. Actually, we have nothing to do with the material energy, but we're embodied, and therefore, by identification, we think I'm this body or mind, and sometimes the body or mind is called the Atma. But the real Atma is the self within, and you can bet your bottom dollar, although we don't bet around here, that we are going to leave behind these bodies. You just drop it off at some point and move on to another situation, and you'll forget all about this present body, everything about it. Whatever tattoos you got, you'll forget. Scars, everything. And you'll move on to a new place, and you take your subtle mind with you. And the symptoms that you exhibited by animating this present body that you're in right now, and which you're doing right now, quite effortlessly, right? Feel that you're animating your body. Everything's going on because you and the super soul, or the Paramatma, are within this body right now. It's a spiritual duo. Two birds in one tree, body is the tree. The process of bhakti yoga means don't give up desire, rather purify your desire. Purification means to take away, filter out the various elements that contaminate something, to bring it to its pure state. It just so happens that we are originally pure consciousness. However, when we become implicated in matter and we direct our attention towards matter, we take on the characteristics of matter, because as little entities, particles of consciousness. We're a special kind of energy. It's spiritual, yes, but it's also called tatasta. Tatasta means marginal. And a good example of a marginal area in the Bay Area that I can point you to is Ocean Beach, right along the sand. Sometimes it's wet and sometimes it's dry, because sometimes it's underwater and sometimes it's not. And tatasta means that we can accommodate either the material energy or the spiritual energy, and we can be accommodated by the material energy or the spiritual energy. It's up to our will and where we point our attention, ultimately. Right now, we may be mixed up in matter, and so the process of bhakti is really a process of purification. We don't need anything new from outside. Everything that we need is already inside, and it only needs to shine forth. Therefore, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in one of his poems, which is famous, part of what's called the Shikshashtakam, says, Cheto Darpana Marjanam, which means that the process of chanting, especially that we just did, it's like taking a bath. Do you feel like you just took a spiritual bath from the Hare Krishna mantra? And that process, as one continues, it cleanses, as he said, the mirror of the heart. And one's identity becomes clearer and clearer, and we see our relationship also with the supreme spiritual being, Krishna, who's always with us, always has been with us, always will be with us, but I've turned my attention elsewhere, like towards Amazon Prime, CNN, Washington Post, TikTok, etc., and on and on. And so the desires that we have now can be purified by engaging them in Krishna's service. So if you like, let's say you like camper vans. Anybody here like a camper van? So how could you use that? You'd get a camper van for $70,000 new, and you could load it up with Bhagavad Gitas, and then you can drive around. Where would you first go? Yellowstone Park. You could go to Yellowstone Park and then in the daytime meet people, giving them an opportunity to read Bhagavad Gita, take it with them. Then you'd gather back around your campfire, clap your hands, chant Hare Krishna so the raccoons and the bison and the bears can hear it. And then you take a little rest, and then you drive on to a new place. So that would be using what you have, your desire to travel, see the world, or just the desire just to help spread Krishna consciousness. And you might look like an ordinary tourist until you got a little closer and you saw that this is a spiritual endeavor all throughout the day. So in doing that, in living one's life in connection to Krishna, using one's senses in various ways, utilizing all of the various facilities that we have for service to Krishna, then not only do we become purified, but also the items that we use become transformed. Just as when you put an iron rod in fire, it becomes fire after some time. So everything becomes spiritualized in that way. So the price for success in bhakti is to develop a house on fire desire. That's described by one of the most prominent disciples of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who was an avatar of Krishna, who appeared 500 years ago to re-explain what Krishna said in the Bhagavad Gita and elsewhere, so that people could take it in underhand pitch, because they didn't get it the first time. And so Rupa Goswami, the disciple I just referred to, said, Krishna ras bhavitomati, Krishna bhakti ras bhavitomati kriyatanyadi kritopi labhyate, tataloyam api mulyam ekalam janma koti sukritirna labhyate. And that is, there's only one price to pay to advance in spiritual life, or bhakti, and it is your house on fire desire. The word in Sanskrit is laulyam, which means literally greed. That you have to have something so much you can't stop thinking about it 24 hours a day. Have you ever had anything like that? Yes. Only a few people. If you go to a neighborhood where you don't speak the language and then your house starts to burn, one way or another you'll get the message across because you're really motivated, right? And that's called a house on fire desire. You'll do whatever it takes, no consideration. That's how to develop the desire. A few of the mechanics of desire, a well-known phrase which is worth keeping, where there's a will, there's a way. Associate with those who are like-minded and who also have a strong desire for the same goal as you. And also that your abilities will grow to meet your strong desire. Nonetheless, desire without discipline is delusion. So we may have ideas for what we want, but if we're not able to harness our desires and our senses in order to move in that direction, then we become ghostly. That is, we have desires, but we can't fulfill them, as we can't get any traction. So now I'm going to go into a little more detail. I'll read these few, and then I'm going to talk about how to develop discipline and why to develop discipline. Does that sound like a good topic? Yes. Okay, you like it, but not very much. Yes. Oh, all right. Okay, the mechanics of discipline. Number one, what's important is a conscious control over lifestyle. It does the word discipline from a Latin word which means learner. All learning takes place, all progress takes place when we have discipline, when our desires meet discipline. Also, correct practice makes perfect. So do it right from the very beginning, get good instruction, and each discipline affects all others. Here's a summary for this part. Deliberate on the best goal. Of course, I didn't say that. I maybe said it earlier, but it's important to point one's desire or to winnow out the desires we may have that lead to a inauspicious conclusion. There are certain kinds of desires one may have where you don't actually feel fulfilled once you reach them. So be careful to notice what your desires are and pick the ones that are most important to emphasize. And the next is develop a house on fire desire. What's the first one? What's the second one? And the third one, gain conscious control of your lifestyle. It's very important for moving forward, and it's part of the essence of discipline. And now I'm going to exit the PPT, because I know you all see a lot of these, and it's better to see the devotees in the Zoom room than these pictures. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about desire from some notes after Sundarananda Prabhu approached me yesterday and said, you have to be a little more detailed, if you would be so kind, about discipline. So here are a few thoughts. You ready? Yes. So a couple of benefits from being disciplined. One is that you develop confidence in yourself. When you know that you can trust yourself, you'll feel better about your life. One of the reasons that people feel despondent sometimes is because they don't like themselves very much. And somebody suggested to me previously, well, everyone else likes that person, why don't they like themselves? And someone said it's because they've been with themselves for so long. And so if you're actually good for it, then you know that you can rise above the state of being irresponsible, or I should say, if you're able to actually take responsibility even a little bit, then feel this surge of confidence that, okay, this feels right, that I'm actually able to rise above the dictates of the senses, and I'm able to stand on my own 2 feet. There's a very powerful position. In fact, in bhakti, there are different levels of advancement, and one of them is called nishta. Nishta is cognate with the word stand in English, and it means, for instance, you could stand on your own 2 feet and not be pushed around. And coming to nishta requires some practice and discipline. And once one is in the situation of nishta, life is happy because we're no longer harassed by the bad masters of the senses. In fact, it's a poem that many of you know, but one of the great teachers of bhakti wrote in a poem, for how long and how many ways have I obeyed the bad masters of my senses? They never gave me time off. They never gave me mercy. And I never even questioned them. I just went ahead with the 7-day work week, 365 days a year, life after life, being a slave to them. And I never said, how can I get out of this? But then the devotee says, no more, no mas. Now I'm turning towards Krishna, and I'm going to use my senses in a different way. I'm going to serve Krishna. Everyone who thinks that's a good idea, say, Haribol. It's unanimous, I hope. Okay, next one is that you make progress when you are disciplined, a lot more than when you aren't. Have you ever noticed that? Like, for instance, with homework. If you're disciplined, you can get a lot done in a short amount of time. If you're not, you can stew about it for a day, a week, a month, think, well, I really should write that paper or study for tests. But if you don't do it, if you're not able to make your desire match your discipline, then it becomes an arduous process where you feel that you're being pressured and you can't do anything about it. It's like kind of being in a dream and you're being chased and you can't move. You ever had that one? Okay, a few people. Happens to me all the time. Okay, so how to start self-discipline. Here comes some practical points. Are you ready? Yes. First one, and these aren't, I haven't had time to actually prioritize these in a perfect order, but this, you can reorder them yourself or wait till I put them back in order again, or put them in order in the first place. The first one is practice interval training. Use a countdown timer. It really helps if you have a countdown timer of some kind, and if you're trying to get up for a task and your mind is holding you back, then say, well, at least I'll do it for 1 minute. Can anybody here do anything hard for 1 minute? What about 5? Is that stretching it? 10 minutes? Well, the more you do this interval training where your mind says, no, I'm not doing anything, I can't do anything, I can only sit here and stare into space, or worse, stare into a screen, then just say for 1 minute, let's do this discipline. Whatever it might be, the right action that you're after, try it, and then set your clock and say, okay, just 1 minute. And if you practice that, doing interval training, then after some time, you start noticing that you actually feel better when you're taking responsibility and controlling your senses than you do sitting there and worrying about why you're not doing anything. Anything resonating? Oh, that's good. Okay, so the next one is to write down your priorities. This is a very clarifying process. If you get a legal pad and a pen, I recommend Bic because they're sponsoring the show tonight. Hi, I'm Vaisesika Dasa. I use a Bic pen. I have one right here. And if you write down your priorities, just put on top of the page what's most important to me and start writing down sentence after sentence just by yourself. Dig inside and you'll start to really uncover a lot of feelings, like, why am I alive? Why am I doing what I'm doing? And once you write them down, it's uncanny how they start to come to the fore in your life. And then what happens next is you'll start thinking about what order to put them in, and see if you can't push yourself to get, what's the topmost priority in my life? What's the second? What's the third? At first, don't share it with anybody, because they'll say, hey, how come I'm not on top? Or whatever it might be. Show it to your cat, and it's like, hey, wait a minute. You're supposed to feed me first. So take some time and work with the process. But once you get it down, you can put it in a folder, put it in your file box, and just secretly take it out from time to time. And you'll notice that you'll be driven towards discipline, because you have a purpose. We actually go towards what we really want to do. And the main problem is, I don't know what I want to do. And if you, in fact, do a survey, go down to Giants Stadium. Nothing wrong with Giants fans. I love them myself. But if you go down in front of Giants Stadium after a game and ask people, what are your top 3 priorities in life? I don't know what will happen. You probably get beat up. Okay. The next one is to set some goals. How do you set goals? Here's the simple answer given by Jim Rohn. He said, decide what you want and write it down. Everyone repeat that, please, after me. Decide what you want and write it down. Decide what you want and write it down. Who has their list now, what you've decided what you want and you wrote it down? Who has a completely clear list? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The rest of you, is it out in the car? Is it at home somewhere? Dog ate your homework? Sun got in my eyes. Okay, so take time to write down your specific goals and make them SMART. What is a SMART? It means specific. If you want to do something, write as clearly as possible in the present tense, and write down your goals and make them time-bound and realistic. And once you have this document, just put it somewhere where you can see it, so you can look at it and review it. Okay? Say yes. Yes. Promise? Yes. When are you going to do it? Today? Tomorrow? You promise you're going to do it, right? Okay, because I'm going to check in next week. All right, or the week after. I'll be out of town. Okay, the next is, remember that small things matter. Even the tiniest little disciplines make it a huge difference, an inordinate difference, because it's like a little atom. Once you split the atom, all the energy comes out. But if you make a choice to do the right thing, then you'll start to motivate yourself in all the different areas of your life. There'll be a chain reaction. I think that's how nuclear fission works. Any nuclear physicists in here? Kids? No? Okay. Next is list your weaknesses. Write down all the things that you think you're weak in. And also, keep a don't do list. You have a to-do list? One person has it. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Also keep a don't do list. So what's that list? It's a don't do. Because when you're very clear about, like, these are the things I'm not going to do, as long as what you're going to do, then it gives you more of a siddhanta. Like, clearly, not just I'm doing this, but I'm also not doing that. And you can have them side by side. Next is when you're trying to enact a discipline and you're finding it difficult to motivate yourself, then do it as a service for others. You can think of how grateful you are for those who have helped you directly or indirectly, and then think, I'm doing it for them. I'm going to discipline myself for them so that I can make them proud, that I can pay them back, and so forth. This service mood out of gratitude is very motivating. Don't worry if you're not taking notes, because I'll have the transcription of this by the end of the day, I think. The next is Now brace yourself for this one. Is this too much? Are you able to absorb this? Yes. Okay. This one, get ready. Allow or invite a hero or heroine in your life to correct or chastise you. Did you catch that one? Yes. Allow or even invite. Allowing means that you just wait for it to happen. And however, if somebody does correct you or even chastise you and say like, hey, wrong, bad, then you're like, oh, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Because it just from somebody who's actually operating at a high position and who shows you this kindness to abruptly correct you, or gently, either way, then you can immediately make a quantum leap. I personally look forward to these opportunities, although it seems a little jarring when it might happen at the time, but actually it knocks a little sense into me. You already have sense. But, you know, if someone verbally chastises or, you know, sends a heavy admonition, it's like, oh, yeah, I need to get serious and wake up. So that really helps with the discipline process, that mood, I'm going to get serious now, is a valuable mood, isn't it? Rather than drifting off like, nothing matters, and whatever happens, happens. You know, but it's more, I'm going somewhere, and I'm going to control my senses to get there. It's very powerful. Okay, here are some of the ways you can identify discipline in your life. One is you're able to delay gratification. And if you could look up, are you on the internet over there? Can you look up, there's a little vignette of a study that was done with children who were offered, I think, a cookie or a cupcake. A marshmallow. And then they would wait, the adult would go out of the room. See if you can find that on YouTube. The shortest version of it possible. So the children were offered an opportunity to double or nothing. So double or one. They were given a marshmallow. The adult would tell them very directly, if you don't eat this until I get back in the room, I'll give you 2 marshmallows. And then the adult would walk out of the room, and they filmed the child. And some of them were able to wait until the adult came back. Although you can see what desire looks like. A kid and a marshmallow, who's going to win? and then, you know, gradually, some of them, they'd start nibbling a little bit. You know, you could really relate to this. Like, I'll just take a little off the edges. No one will notice. And next thing, well, they probably won't notice if it's half gone, right? Well, they probably didn't mean it. And then they eat the whole thing. There's a way in which when desire takes over, rationality starts to go down. So what they found is that the children who were able to delay gratification longer actually did better throughout their lives. They were able to track this. And so one of the ways that we'll notice if we're disciplined is we're able to delay gratification. Just put it off for some time. The next is if you can finish what you started. Some things we start and then we get halfway through, a quarter of the way through, and there's and we forget about it. Also, your ability to stay on a streak and keep a streak going, that's a good sign that you're able to maintain discipline. Also, to stick to a vow. If you're able to make a vow, so be careful when you make vows that you have a little momentum, you've practiced a little bit, and you say, yes, I feel like I can make a vow. That's a symptom that you have some discipline. Also, tolerate urges. So urges pop up in our lives, and they say, I'm going to be here forever, unless you give in. But you'll find that there's a technique to overcome urges, and when you do overcome them by waiting them out, usually they disappear, and you find out that they weren't as strong as they said they were. And here's the technique for doing that. It's called tender, loving neglect. Don't get angry at them. Just lovingly neglect them. Does anybody here know how to neglect something? Houseplants? Did anybody kill a houseplant? Come on, admit it. You killed a houseplant once, right? Yeah. So if you're able to kill a houseplant, you can definitely kill an urge, because all you have to do is just neglect it and look the other way, do something else, move on. And this is one of the ways to deal with urges that come up. And this is one of the first points, it is the first point that Rupa Goswami makes in his book Upadeshamrita, that was Spanish, Upadeshamrita. Vacho vegam manasakrodha vegam, jihva vegam udarapasta vegam, itan vegam, yo vishaheta tira, sarvam apimam pritivim nisishya. And that is that if you're able to tolerate the urges of all the senses, then you rise to a higher level. How high of a level do you rise to? You become a spiritual master for everybody else in the world. Why? Because the masters of this world are the senses everywhere, from top to bottom. And if you find somebody who's actually able to discipline themselves and control their senses, then you've found yourself a wise person who's entered into a different level through which he or she can teach others. Couple more. Here's one that I really like, and you might find crazy, but practice liking something that you don't like. One person nodded her head. Two. Okay. All right, I have a mission to make. I didn't used to like berries. There, I said it. But now I love them. I read about berries for a while because I thought they were too tart. And I thought, I only like berries if you smother them with cream and sugar. But since I don't eat cream and sugar anymore, I thought, well, it's a shame to pass up such a superfood. And besides, bears eat them. And if bears eat them, and they're really strong, I'd like to eat them too. So I just made a mental choice. I said, from now on, I'm going to like berries. And I just flipped my mind and I said, now I like berries. So find something you don't like, as long as it's healthy for you, and then say, okay, I'm going to change my mind. I'm going to like it. Do you have anything, Anshu, you would pick? Got it in mind? I'll give you another example. All the soap in the world was used up during the beginning of the pandemic. I couldn't get the liquid soap that I like. So I got on the website of the company, I forget what it's called, but they only had one in stock left that everybody in the world hated. That's why it was in stock. It was like the worst scent anybody came up with. The person was probably fired. But still, they wanted to unload them on somebody, and I needed soap, so I ordered it. And when it arrived, I decided, no matter what it is, I'm going to like it. So the first time I washed my hands, I said, yeah, it is pretty bad. But I'm going to like it anyway, because I can change my mind. And I just said, I like it. It's interesting. And I just noticed that there's a way in which you can overcome this mental block that I don't like something. You can actually change it. So this is part of discipline. It begins from an inner level. So then the next one is to find healthy places that are outside your comfort zone. Find healthy places outside your comfort zone. And if I can give you one that might sound a little shocking or scary. No? Skip it? Okay. 5 people said yes. Everyone else, cover your ears. Try taking a freezing cold shower. Haribo! You could start warm and then gradually go down if you're a chicken. But if you want to just have a jolt where you'll have the best day of your life, turn it on as cold as you can and just jump in and see what happens. Or you can practice gradually going in. But cold waters, I mean, there's a lot of evidence nowadays that's pretty good for you. At least start warm and end up cool. Thank you. Everyone please say, Go Ranga. Go Ranga! Thank you. Find healthy places outside your comfort zone, and finally, embrace failure as a teacher, because even though we may take disciplines and so forth, there's always going to be some kind of outcome that we weren't expecting or didn't want, but we have to just learn from it and move forward. Whew. Now we could take a few reflections. Anything you heard so far that's stuck in your mind that you find useful that you can use? Yes. Oh, just last thing. And that is that the most and the primary means of developing discipline is to chant the Maha Mantra. Now, what we did earlier, we chanted and we felt like we were bathed in transcendental sound. So according to the Srimad Bhagavatam, Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Janaya Yashivayaragyam Jnanam Chayara Haitukam. When you chant Hare Krishna, then what happens is you get a free gift, 2 free gifts, and that is you get knowledge and you get a sense of detachment from the world, naturally. And you're able, with these 2, to have discipline in your life. And if you do all the other things I just mentioned, but you don't chant Hare Krishna, then your discipline will be short-lived. It'll come and go. But if you chant Hare Krishna as much as possible and regularly, and you also use these little hints of how to get a little bit more out of your senses and life by keeping them disciplined and going towards your desires, then you'll be a smashing success. And when anybody asks you how you're doing, you'll say, they'll say, how did it go? You'll say, swimmingly. Or you'll say, how are you doing today? And you'll say, super good and getting better. Or outstanding but still improving. Right? Is that what you'll say? Okay, now let's take a few reflections.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj, for this wonderful class and beautiful tips to develop discipline. I really loved the 8th one, which was do it for others, to make others proud. It really helps me. I have tried it. For all the shortcomings I have, it really helps me to do it better next time, like every time, to make me more disciplined. If I'm not disciplined, I feel guilty, and then next time I'm like better. So
That's a nice point. Thank you for reviewing that. And our friend Peter Burwash once said that one of the ways in which he conducts himself or is able to conduct himself in a disciplined way is he always thinks that Srila Prabhupada's riding in the car with me, or he's sitting across from me. What would I do in that situation if he was sitting there watching me? So you can pick the one that you would think you'd want to be at least civil around or disciplined, and think, what would they do in such a situation, and how would they respond to the way I'm acting right now? And that really helps. Okay, let's take a couple more. Yes.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. I like the point about that. When we tell our mind, I will do just for 1 minute. When I figured out this a while ago for myself, but not just 1 minute. I was just telling myself, let me just try to do it. Just try. And then I realized that the mind, it's not that strong, so there is a way to trick it. It's like a kid, but you can train it and you can just find a way around this. So that was really gave me the hope that I can cope with my mind and cooperate and use it, make it as a useful tool, like in spiritual realization, not just enemy, not just fight.
Nice points. It's enemy when it's untrained, but like a horse that you make a commitment to, and it makes a commitment to you, then you have a really beautiful relationship. Arman.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Who is our man?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for the awesome and knowledgeable lecture. One of the questions that's been pondering on my mind this
Keep that close. You can keep the mask on, but just keep the microphone
this last
close.
week is that, is it wrong to keep a living thing in your house, such as is it wrong to keep a bird caged up in your house?
Well, you could take them out. We know a bird, Sunny. He attends youth jam every week, right, Sunny? And Seems okay. I don't know, you can ask a pet psychologist how birds do. I think, yeah, it's a better question for them. Some domesticated animals don't mind living inside with humans. And you'd have to judge about that.
Thank you, Maharaj.
It is a lot more work than you'd think, though. Birds, well, anyway, I won't go into what they do, but they make a lot of noise and they make a mess, too. Although we love them, birds are our friends. Hare Krishna. Pets are in general, but, you know, it's a lot of work taking care of another living entity. And once you invite another living entity into your life, it's a serious thing because you have to take care of it. And besides that, nowadays, unlike in the old days when animals would live out their life, now there's knee replacements for animals, there's chemotherapy, and you're getting up into the hundreds of thousands for each operation. Shraddha is online, and everyone please move up by 7.2 inches. And we're just coming close to the time where we're going to stand up anyway, so you might as well practice moving a little bit. Okay, Shraddha on the Zoom.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj.
Hare
Please
Krishna.
accept my respectful obeisances. Guru Maharaj, I really like the point when you were talking about the purpose of ISKCON, and then you said that we all have desires and sense gratification is always there, but once we align it to our real constitutional position, that's when we get real happiness. And so it just reminds me of one of the purports that Prabhupada wrote in Canto 2, Chapter 9, Text 35. This transcendental devotional service of the Lord is so wonderful that the occupation keeps the deserving devotee always wrapped in psychological activities without deviation from the absolute touch. And it just got me thinking that when we look for gratification outside, we are dependent on the externals, which may or may not be under our control. Most of the times it's not in our control. But when we turn inwards, and as you said, that we have everything inside, it just needs to shine forth. And when we actually face towards that, we are always content and happy inside. And that's what Prabhupada has taught us. So just wanted to share that, Guru Maharaj.
Well, thank you for entering that into evidence today. I'll keep that quote in this presentation. It's really good. And it's really the essence of sense control and discipline is to engage the senses in the service of the master of the senses, Krishna. That's called devotional service. And we actually feel happy when we do that. Like if you sweep the floor in the temple, you'll feel ecstasy. If you wash the pots, you'll feel happy. If you do any of the activities that are related to service to Krishna and you use your senses, then you'll be in a kind of instant samadhi by doing that. Yes. Can we pass the mic back? We'll take one more after this because we'll leave some time to chant. Okay, Jenna's next.
Hi. So my question is, like, we know we are not mind and body, like, or we are supposed to realize this. But then once we have realized this, why to act with this mind and body in the first place? Like why Krishna is telling Arjun to fight with this realization.
The fight with the realization?
Fight with the, yeah.
Yes, it's such an important point and good question you made. So we have two aspects to our life. One of them is called vyavaharika, which means that we have to attend to the mind and body even though it's not us. Just like if you drive a car, you have to take care of it. And we have duties to do in this world, certain dharmas according to the body we've taken at birth. For instance, let's just say that you have to work somewhere. Possible, right? Anybody have to work? Okay, anybody who doesn't have to work, see me afterwards. So if you go in for a job interview and they ask you where you're from and you say, I'm from the spiritual world, I'm pure spirit soul, I'm from the spirit world, I had nothing to do with this world. They'll say, next. So there's a way that we acknowledge the fact that we have a material body and we're in the material world, even though we are spiritual souls. And this is our duty that we do while we're moving about the world, because it's a platform, the body, from which we become self-realized. And then Arjuna was doing his duty. It's like when there's a problem and innocent people are getting hurt, you need a force, to somebody who's trained already to protect the innocent. So Arjuna was in that category. He spent his whole youth learning martial arts and learning how to protect others. And so when he was called to fight the first time, he said, I don't want to fight because this is going to mess up my program. I had an idea about, being with my family and a place if we're going to win this war anyway, and then everyone will love me even more than they do now. These ideas are for myself, called sense gratification. So Krishna enlightens him and he says, no, you fight, but just do it for the Supreme. Do it for me. It's as your first of all, do it as your duty as a martial artist who's protecting the society, called a Kshatriya. And then also consider that whatever you're doing is divine service you're offering to me. And then you won't be touched by the results. So when you have these two tracks running in your life, you can stay in balance because you're acting rationally. Also, let's just say you become aware that the material world is a temporary place, everyone in it is temporary, our relationships are, and you start treating your family like that. It won't go well for your family or for society if other people start doing that, because you have to show love to your children, to your significant others, and so forth. I mean, you don't have to abandon your spiritual duty for that. You can do them both at the same time, so it's a balance. Okay? Hare Krishna. Last question from Jenna.
So this is like more of a reflection on something that you said. I loved when you talked about like using a cold shower as like kind of a practice. That's something that I actually did for a while. And I think it's a really important practice because it's almost like practicing accepting like being uncomfortable. And I think that's so important in like a world that's so full of uncomfortable situations and like scary situations. And I feel like a lot of people are scared to do like a cold plunge or something like that. So I think it's
Nobody here is afraid, right?
it sounds scary.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that that's a really important practice for just acceptance for being in uncomfortable situations, which is inevitable. So thank you.
Well, yeah, thank you for remembering that point. And I'll just mention that we don't necessarily take austerity just for its own sake, but when it's favorable for our service, that's the time to take it. So if it's favorable for you to stay healthy and more awake when you get up in the morning to do your chanting, you consider it like that. And oftentimes these so-called discomfort zones, they end up making you feel much more comfortable afterwards. And this is what Krishna talks about in the Bhagavad Gita is happiness in the mode of sattva. It feels like poison in the beginning, but nectar at the end. So sometimes it feels inconvenient to wake up early in the morning, right? Yes. However, once you do, and you're able to do your spiritual practice early in the morning, then you feel like, oh, that was worth it. And you feel exaltation that you wouldn't have felt otherwise, and you can't get from anything else. And similarly, some of these other austerities that we go on doing our duty for, and they assist us in our services, these are very favorable. They're favorable for us. That helps us to be more ready for doing service for Krishna. And we'd like to welcome and acknowledge His Holiness Ratatvaj Swami, who's joined us online. Thank you very much, Maharaj. And now we have a couple more minutes for Mahamantra singing. So let's try it out, because of all the different hints and ideas we talked about, the main process for becoming disciplined is to discipline the tongue to chant Hare Krishna, both in japa and in kirtan. And if you do that, then all the other disciplines will naturally come easy to you. Just the China. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Now we're going to start our Hare Krishna dance party. Anyone who's been to dance school here at the Hare Krishna movement knows that the Swami is the biggest hit and most popular dance, so feel free to dance the Swami. We're going to put away all these seats in the back of the room. We'll roll up this rug, open the whole dance floor for you so you can sing and dance to your heart's content. Hare Krishna. Thank you for coming, everybody. Gracias. Muchas gracias. Hare Krishna. Thank you. Hare. Sorry. Anybody need percussion? Could get cowbell. Cowbell? You want a cowbell?
Okay, so before the rejuvenation.
Do you know how to say frame of Dwani? You say the frame of Dwani. Okay. Because I have to abscond. Okay. And I'll meet somebody in that room during the string of prayers, okay? Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gaura Pashat Deshadarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Beat that drum. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. All together now, one more time. Everybody, everybody. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Gaur Premanande, Gaur Premanande.
जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस नित्यलीला प्रविष्ट परिव्राजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर शतश्री श्रीमात इष्टलिंगे अभयचनारंद भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी शीला प्रभुपाद की जय ISKCON फाउंडर आचार्य शीला प्रभुपाद की जय अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय नामाचार्य शीला ठाकुर हरिदास की जय प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरि गोवर्धन धाम की जय। ब्रजभूमि श्री वृंदावन मथुरा धाम की जय। श्री नवद्वीप मायापुर धाम की जय। श्री जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय। श्री जगन्नाथ स्वामी की जय। भक्ति देवी की जय। तुलसी महारानी की जय। गंगा मैया की जय। यमुना मैया की जय। समवेत भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। वर्ल्ड वाइड इस्कॉन की जय। इस्कॉन ऑफ सिलिकॉन वैली की जय। ट्रांसेंडेंटल बुक डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन की जय। गौर प्रेमानंदे। All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories, all glories, all glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga.
ऋषिकेश भगवान की
हरे कृष्णा हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. It's nice to see such a large turnaround and on the Sunday sunny and hot day. Thank you all for joining us today here at ISKCON of Silicon Valley. Please give a big round of applause to everyone who have joined and also online. So the program started with a beautiful grain feeding ceremony of our little Yadav Pati. We had a beautiful grain feeding ceremony, and then we had a nice kirtan by His Grace Vaisesika Prabhu, and he spoke about desire and the discipline. He said the symptom of every living being is desire, and one should not give up the desire but purify it by discipline. And he talks about the techniques of the discipline. So if you missed the class, please do watch online. It's all recorded. So let's give a big round of applause and thank His Grace Vaisesika Prabhu for bringing us to this class. We also would like to thank again His Grace Vaisesika Prabhu for leading an ecstatic kirtan. And we would like to thank Bhakti Radhika for leading the Narsimha Arti. We would also like to thank our broadcast team, His Grace Charu Nimai Prabhu and Girdhar, for bringing us a live broadcast. Anyone coming here for the first time? I see a lot of new faces today. Yeah? Wow. Thank you all for coming. And this cannot be such a coincidence that all of the newcomers turned out, a lot of newcomers came here for the first time. We will know why in a minute. But thank you all for coming and joining us. We have 3 days a week program here at ISKCON of Silicon Valley. Wednesday evening, 7 o'clock, 7 to 8:30 p.m. is online. On Sunday, it's 3:30 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. And on Saturday, it's 8 to 10:30 a.m. So if you have any questions or we can be any assistance, please do let us know. My name is Shri Gopal Das, or you can find Sachindra Prabhu. He must be either in the kitchen or serving prasadam outside. So again, let's chant one Mahamantra for all the newcomers. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So we have quite a few sponsors today. We have 5 sponsors for Sunday Feast today. And we'll like to acknowledge all of them. I'll call upon every one of them one by one. Please do come here and accept a small token of appreciation in Mahaprasad as a token. So the first of all, I would like to acknowledge Jitendra Prabhu, who is sponsoring in the memory of his father, who recently left his body. Yes, Jitendra Prabhu, please come. And we request all the devotees to request the prayers for his dad's protection. And thank you, Jitendra Prabhu, for sponsoring the feast. You have a few words.
Thank you, everybody. Just keep him in your prayers. I remember the first time he came to the temple. We were at Foxworthy Temple, and he's saying that we visit Vrindavan, holy places. Visiting temple here is like coming to Vrindavan in USA. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. And the next sponsor is Neeral and Kathy Mataji are sponsoring on the occasion of their daughter's first birthday, and the daughter's name is Keshavi. Please. and I already saw that she was walking, so she is a quick learner, I guess. And thank you, Niral Prabhupada Kathy Mataji. They go a long back, and they are very old devotees, right from our Bascom temple. If you don't know where the Bascom, we used to stay in a rented place a decade back. So they go a long back. So thank you, Niral and Kathy Mataji, for sponsoring the feast. A few words.
Thank you, all the devotees. Please bless her. Radharani. The first word she learned after Dada was Jai. So I'm pretty sure she's not going to say it today. But thank you for all the blessings that everyone has given us. And we hope that we continue to serve. And please give her the blessing so that she can serve all the devotees and get inspired from everyone, especially all the kids over here, and join the ISV Sunday School soon. So thank you.
And the next sponsor is Rasika Mataji, is sponsoring on the occasion of His Grace Govind Charan Prabhu's birthday. So now you know why there is such a large turnaround of the devotees. Even the first timers know your birthday, Govind Charan Prabhu. Thank you. And Govind Charan Prabhu is one of the organizer for one of the best kirtans in the United States. It's not one of the best kirtans in United States. He has such a busy life. He manages a company. He's does a lot of things which I don't even know back of the scene. But thank you, Govind Charan Prabhu, for everything that you do, and Hare Krishna. And one of the things, he always smiles. In the midst of Sadhu Sangha retreat is what he manages, he organizes. This time we had to suddenly shift the places because of the weather, but he had a smile always in his face, and that means a lot. And he also is very fond of the kids. And I don't want to ask your age, but I know that you are very young, and you spent like 1 hour playing the other day with the kids in the function that we had in Campbell. So thank you, Govind Charan Prabhu. Please, any words that you'd like to say?
Hare Krishna. Recently, when our little Aradhya, 7-year-old, she was, our Guru Maharaj asked her, "Does your brother treat you well?" She said, "No. He is like 15, but he behaves like 10. He's so mean." Like that. She was complaining. So I think the same applies to me also. Even though I'm growing old, please bless me that I also grow up in Krishna consciousness and take more responsibilities to serve Srila Prabhupada and the Vaishnavas and all of you. And again, very fortunate and thankful to be in the association of all of you, and especially His Grace Vaisesika Prabhu, Nirukula Mataji, and all the advanced devotees here. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Govind Charan Prabhu, you're not done yet. Since you love the ISV kids so much, we have baked a kids style cake for you to cut it and distribute to the kids after the program in the parking lot. So, and we know we have to do that also because you're going to be also helping us out, taking care of all the kids on Janmashtami, wee hours of night. So thank you for always your dedication towards helping kids and stay enthusiastic and enlightening, which is a very daunting task, but you take it so nicely. It's a very inspiring. Thank you so much. And I have one question for Rasika. So, Rasika, what do you like about Govind Charan?
His carefree attitude. Even the hell breaks down or whatever happens, he doesn't care about anything. Care about meaning worry about. Because I'm here to worry about everything. Because it's hard to be like that when you manage so many things. But I think that's what keeps him light, I think. So,
thank you.
The next sponsor is Her Grace Sukheshwari Mataji is sponsoring for the request of prayers for Nick, who left his body 2 years back, and he donated his kidney to Sukeshwari Mataji. So she is sponsoring the feast and request prayers for the departed soul. Mataji, please.
Hare Krishna. You all know so many devotees helped me do it for the, as soon as I had my transplantation, we did the 10th, 11th, and 12th day as per Vedic tradition. Last year when I sponsored for him, I didn't know who he was. But luckily, actually, Johnny, his mom is on her way. She may not be here immediately, but next half an hour she'll be here. So I got to know that it's Nick, and now I have the prayers. Of course, Krishna always knew who I was praying to, but I know who the person is now. So I humbly request all the devotees to pray for Nick, so he achieves perfection in his life. Wherever he is, devotees' prayers are huge. So I humbly request, because anything that I'm able to do in my service in Krishna consciousness is because of Nick. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
And our last sponsor, but not the least, is His Grace Vijay Prabhu and Mohini Madhavi Mataji are sponsoring on the occasion of their son's grain feeding ceremony that we observed today. Are they here? I saw them today.
They're outside with the baby.
Okay. So let's thank them, and let's thank all the sponsors for today by loudly chanting Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Now we have a special announcement from Hansapriya Mataji.
Hare Krishna again. It's just wonderful to see large turnout today, and many of the new faces. And we would like to actually take care of you. So after the program, if you need any assistance, please reach out to Sri Gopal Prabhu or myself. We'll be happy to assist you. If the lines are too big for you to stand in to take a prasadam, we know how to do shortcuts. So please, you want to make sure that you contact us. Okay. Beside that, as you know, that ISV is made of all of us coming together, loving together, and being there for each other. And this example has been very nicely set up by our own Mother Nera Kola. And it's this tomorrow, Monday, is her birthday. So we want each of you to pray for her long health, good health, and her love. And she's been shoulder for many of us. She's been there in countless time for many of us. So genuinely, sincerely, we'll make a prayer for her good health and continuation of her dedication in the Srila Prabhupada moment. So with that, we'll just say from our heart, we'll chant the one Maha Mantra, and we will say it from all the feelings that Srila Prabhupada and Lordships can hear from our heart. Okay? So with that, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So around 6:30 p.m., we will have Mother Nirkula. Even she doesn't know that, but she loves each of you, and especially for the grandkids of hers at ISV. She'll be passing out the cookies around 6:30 p.m., if time permits, to each of you. So stay around to wish your grandmother happy birthday, okay? Hare Krishna.
Looks like lots of fun for the kids, huh? Cake and the cookies. Yeah? Okay, great. And Avantika, please announce the cooks.
Hare Krishna. Today's prasadam was cooked by Ananda Mataji, Gopi Priya Mataji, Hitesh Prabhu, Kamal Mataji, Palika Mataji, Shama Bhakta Prabhu, Shama Karuna Mataji, Sriram Prabhu, Subodhini Mataji, and Vaishnavi.
And if you like to volunteer for cleaning services, we have some opportunities. So please do see me or Tadya Seva Prabhu. We have a lot of opportunities for cleaning the kitchen and the vessels. Thank you all again for joining us tonight for the Sunday Feast program. If there are no other announcements, we will go to Prasad Sevya prayers. Monisha, please, can you lead the Prasad Sevya prayers? Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Sharira vidya Johendriya Tarika Jive Pere Nishaya Sagore Tanate Jivayati Lobo Moisu Please come take Prashadam.